Yes. Could we really go without discussing the rise of the kid from West Newbury, Massachusetts, in John Felix Anthony Cena, the doctor of Thugonomics, multiple-time WWE champion, United States champion, tag team champion, you name it, this man has done it. But it's not just about discussing John Cena, it's about discussing his rise from mid-carder and undercard rapper to WrestleMania main eventer. And the best years to describe this rise would be from 2004 till 2005. So strap in, get yourself ready, because this is Basic Thugonomics, the rise of John Cena from 2004 to 2005. Well, there's really no better place to kick this off than the Royal Rumble 2004. I mean, yes, John Cena was the poster child, quite literally, for the Royal Rumble this year, but it's not just that. This Royal Rumble would lead us to two of the biggest title reigns in Cena's career, and his first two singles title runs, I should say. More the first one, but we'll get to that later. Well, Cena would enter this Rumble match at, I believe, number 28, followed by Rob Van Dam at number 29, and then Goldberg at number 30. But it wasn't really about what he did in the Rumble. Yes, he came out to his normal rapping gimmick, threw Nunzio back in the ring, and then got to work. He didn't last very long in the Rumble. He was down to the final six, which I believe consisted of Big Show, Chris Jericho, Rob Van Dam, Chris Benoit, Cena himself, and Kurt Angle, if I remember correctly. Like we said, it wasn't so much about what John Cena did in this Rumble, but it was eventually what would happen to him, unfortunately, throughout the match. Everybody in the Rumble would go to try to eliminate the dominant force in Big Show, but after Big Show would break free, he would toss John Cena over the top rope, and Cena would land awkwardly on his left knee, actually causing an MCL tear. The way he landed and the way the knee bent sideways was just absolutely terrible and brutal, to say the least. This injury would obviously eliminate John Cena from the Rumble match, halting his plans for WrestleMania in the process. However, it would also cause Cena to be gone from WWE programming for about a month until No Way Out 2004. At No Way Out 2004, there would be a triple threat match between the United States Champion, The Big Show, Kurt Angle, and the Doctor of Thugonomics, John Cena, to determine who would go on to battle the undisputed WWE Champion for the title in the main event of WrestleMania. John Cena would fight tooth and nail, but due to the knee injury and being caught in the ankle lock from Kurt Angle, he would be forced to submit. Following the crushing defeat at No Way Out, this would halt John Cena's world title plans for the foreseeable future. However, he would go on to challenge The Big Show for the WWE United States Championship at the Show of Shows inside Madison Square Garden. This is where the Doctor of Thugonomics and the kid from West Newbury, Massachusetts would finally get his first singles title in the WWE. After connecting with the brass knuckles to the head of The Big Show and landing the FU, he covered the Giant for the 1-2-3 and would go on to become the new WWE United States Champion. Cena's first run as the United States Champion was memorable, but it didn't last very long. I would say it was about a 4-month reign. He had matches with the likes of Rene Dupree, Mr. Thursday Night, Rob Van Dam, a best of 5 series with Booker T, which we'll get to in a little bit. And, all those matches were great. The most memorable probably being that best of 5 series with Booker T. But even as the United States Champion, John Cena would go on to battle The Undertaker, the Phenom, on the June 24, 2004 episode of SmackDown. I know he had a feud with The Undertaker back in 2003, but this was different. This was the Phenom. This wasn't the American Badass. And although it was a losing effort, it showed where Cena would be going in the future, which was to the main event. This would lead us into the first ever WWE Great American Bash pay-per-view, and in a fatal 4-way for the United States Championship, where John Cena would defend against, as we mentioned, Rene Dupree, Booker T, and Mr. Thursday Night, Rob Van Dam. In this match, Cena would counter a scissors kick from Booker T and land the FU to retain the championship, much to the dismay of the current SmackDown general manager, who was in a wheelchair and compromised at the time, and the Olympic gold medalist, Kurt Angle. After accidentally attacking the general manager Kurt Angle in his wheelchair, John Cena would be stripped of the United States Championship on the July 8th, 2004 episode of SmackDown. This would then give the title to Booker T, who he would battle in, as we said earlier, a best of 5 series for that United States Championship. The first match of the series, as we said, took place at SummerSlam 2004, where John Cena would go on to defeat Booker T after hitting an FU and getting a 1-2-3 in the middle of the ring. Following this, there would be two more matches where Booker T would go up 2-1. Cena would then defeat Booker T on another episode of SmackDown, tying the series up at 2-2. Following this 2-2, they needed a tiebreaker, and that occurred at No Mercy 2004, where John Cena would officially go 3-2 in the best of 5 series and now become the undisputed United States champion. Even though Cena would finally become the undisputed United States champion, he would drop the title just a week later on an episode of SmackDown to the debuting Carlito Caribbean Cool. This was a huge win for the debuting Carlito after he would hit John Cena with the padlock after the referee was distracted and get the 1-2-3 in his debut in the company. This would lead to a huge feud between Carlito, John Cena, and Carlito's bodyguard in Jesus. This all stemming off of the fact that John Cena was allegedly stabbed in the kidney inside of a nightclub, and it was down to the WWE and the fans to determine who was the man who attacked John Cena. Although it was originally determined to be Jesus and revealed that that was who the attacker was, original plans were to have the ECW legend New Jack be the man to stab John Cena allegedly in the kidney inside that nightclub. However, plans never seemed to go that way. This whole stabbing nightclub angle was done to keep Cena out of action for a month while he was filming his first ever motion picture in the Marine. However, John Cena would then make his return at Survivor Series 2004, which would then be followed by his long-awaited rematch for that United States Championship against the man who took it away from him in Carlito. Cena came back with a vengeance and beat Carlito from pillar to post, although he tried to get out of the match due to an alleged shoulder injury that Carlito had suffered. This, however, didn't work as Theodore Long, the general manager of SmackDown at the time, forced him to go into the match even if he was injured. Cena won the match quickly, but then was attacked by Jesus with a padlock shot to the kidney. This would then set up a match between the United States Champion in John Cena and his alleged attacker in Jesus for Armageddon 2004. Although it was determined to be a 2-on-1 handicap street fight, it was really just a 1-on-1. Cena would come out sporting one of his best t-shirt designs of all time in the Ruck Fools gear, alongside with his newly designed United States Championship, putting a spin on the original design, quite literally, and having one of the coolest designs for a championship that the fans had seen in a very long time. Although the title didn't last long, it definitely was unique to the man who was holding it in the Doctor of Thugonomics. Cena would go on to beat Jesus all around the arena before eventually hitting the FU and claiming the victory over the man who attacked him in the nightclub. This would end the story with Jesus and Carlito, primarily ending Jesus' career and moving on to the Royal Rumble. This Royal Rumble, although the ending was quite literally botched and not meant to go the way that it did, it really would go on to determine two of the biggest stars in the history of the company and two of the graduating class from OVW making their way into the main event scene. These men were John Cena and Batista, one from Raw, one from SmackDown. The match would conclude, albeit controversially, with Batista hoisting John Cena up for a Batista bomb, but John Cena countering with a reverse Hurricane Rana, so to speak, and both men's feet hitting the floor at the exact same time. This would cause the chairman Vince McMahon to run out to the ring to determine who would become the winner of this 2005 Royal Rumble match and head on to the main event of WrestleMania 21. Vince McMahon came down to the ring furiously and had to sit down due to the fact that he quite literally could not stand up due to his injury. He then ordered the match to be restarted so we could determine an official winner for the 2005 Royal Rumble. Referees from SmackDown insisting that John Cena had won the match. Referees from Raw insisting that the Animal Batista was heading to WrestleMania 21. The match would be restarted, Cena would go for the FU, and then Batista would counter it, throw Cena into the ropes, land a spinebuster, and eventually toss the Doctor of Thugonomics over the top rope with both feet touching the floor. The Animal Batista was headed to the main event of WrestleMania in Hollywood, but the Doctor of Thugonomics would not be far off. An 8-man number 1 contender tournament with the finals taking place at No Way Out 2005 would take place on SmackDown in the weeks leading up to the event. Even though the main event for No Way Out was the first and only ever barbed wire steel cage match in the history of the WWE, the finals of the tournament would end up being Kurt Angle versus John Cena, with the winner going on to battle whoever the undisputed champion was at WrestleMania 21. The match would be back and forth, but in the end, the Doctor of Thugonomics, John Cena, would go on to become the number 1 contender, leading into WrestleMania 21 and going up against the champion in John Bradshaw Layfield. The feud between JBL and John Cena would take a turn as John Cena would defend his United States Championship against JBL's cabinet member in Orlando Jordan. Not many people would ever believe that Orlando Jordan would go on to defeat John Cena to become the new United States champion, albeit due to interference from JBL himself, but still Jordan was able to take the title from Cena. But it didn't end there. Adding insult to injury, Orlando Jordan, JBL, and the rest of his cabinet would take the title that John Cena created and put his own spin on and blow it up inside of a trash can the following week on SmackDown. Now, a quick funny story here, which is going a little bit off script, but I got my first ever WWE replica belt, and it was the John Cena United States Championship spinner. I still have it to this day. I got it in the mail the week after JBL and Orlando Jordan blew up the title on SmackDown. So just a little bit of a funny story, as I figured it was good to include it here. Now we head into Hollywood and WrestleMania with probably the best feud for the champion in JBL at the time, because it was just a complete polar opposite. You had the classy, smug, egotistical JBL versus the thug, new kid on the block, rapping gangster in John Cena. It was complete opposites, and it made for a perfect story. A lot of people believing that JBL was probably going to defeat John Cena because he had such a lengthy title reign at the time, or he had a lengthy title run. And that was not to be the case. John Cena would go on to defeat JBL and claim the undisputed WWE Championship that night at WrestleMania 21. So WrestleMania goes Hollywood, and John Cena becomes mainstream. Following John Cena's title win at WrestleMania 21 over JBL, the feud between the two would continue heading into May's Judgment Day 2005. However, the feud would not just continue, it would become a lot more vindictive and a lot more personal than it ever had been before. JBL was one of John Cena's best rivals throughout his career, and he was definitely one of the biggest influences in John Cena's rise and John Cena's push throughout the main event. Now, heading into Judgment Day 2005, JBL would go into the locker room on SmackDown and steal the Undisputed Championship from John Cena. He did this because he believed John Cena was not to be a champion. He was a thug, he was a kid, he was a rapper, and he was not to be the face of SmackDown. A true wrestling god and a classy billionaire like JBL should be the face of wrestling and should be the face of Friday nights. JBL would go on to steal a box which he believed to contain John Cena's surprise for the fans in attendance that night. However, when JBL opened up the box, which he believed he had stole from John Cena, it was actually a gift that Cena had gotten for JBL. He went all around to find a gift for somebody who had everything. What could he get somebody who had everything? And then it dawned on him. He got JBL the one thing he didn't have, from the finest butchers in Chicago, and that was guts. JBL opened up the box and was disgusted to find guts all throughout the box. Cena went out of the ring, dumped the box on top of JBL's head, went back into the ring and said, "This is the new WWE Championship." As he turned around, the belt was lowered from the ceiling, and the spinner WWE Championship, with Cena again putting his own spin on a timeless classic and a WWE title for the ages, had been born. This newly created championship now put an extra layer of storytelling and an extra layer of meaning going into the I Quit match at Judgment Day 2005. You had the old school, classy, original style professional wrestler in JBL with the originally designed undisputed WWE title going up against the current WWE champion, the new kid on the block, new school, and the new age of WWE with the spinner WWE title in John Cena. John Cena versus JBL at Judgment Day 2005 in an I Quit match. Now, heading into Judgment Day 2005, John Cena had released his first ever album, his first ever CD in You Can't See Me by John Cena and Trademark. This was a huge step in the career of John Cena and just added one more level to him becoming the mainstream superstar that we've come to know today. Now, going into Judgment Day, his entrance was heavily inspired by the album he released as he came out on a semi-truck alongside Trademark as he was playing turntables and spinning records as Cena's entrance reigned throughout the arena. John Cena versus JBL for the WWE Championship in an I Quit match. Now, to be honest, guys, I don't even really want to give you everything that happened throughout this I Quit match because, one, it's one of the best matches in John Cena's career, and it's also one of the best I Quit matches in the history of WWE and one of the bloodiest matches you will ever see in WWE itself. John Cena was hit with a chair shot heard round the world that literally made him leak like a faucet. I mean, he was bleeding like the proverbial stuffed pig all throughout the match. JBL was beating him down, choking him out with his own padlock and chain, choking him out with the cables that connected the lights and the pyro on the top of the stage. I mean, throwing him into the barricade. Cena would come back and choke JBL out with his own cable. You know, he would come back, and as JBL was choking him with the cable, he asked him to say, "I quit," and you heard John Cena go, "Hell no!" And John Cena came back and threw JBL into a TV that was positioned right in front of them. Then he grabbed one of the pipes off of the truck and slammed into the Judgment Day signs, into the plexiglass, and slammed JBL right through it. But this was after he held that big pipe up above his head, and JBL said, "I quit," but John Cena didn't want to end it there. They fought on top of the limo, but at the end of the day, John Cena retained the WWE Championship, became the undisputed champion, so to speak, and walked out of Judgment Day 2005 with 2 victories over JBL and a championship match that everybody needs to see. And now I guess it's about time to wrap it up. I mean, he had these victories over JBL, you know, had debuted a new championship. He finally overcame the brash, egotistical, billionaire piece of shit heel, you know, chicken shit heel, even if that's what you want to call it in the terms of the Professional Wrestling Dictionary. But he then would eventually make his way over to Monday Night Raw on the first night of the 2005 WWE Draft Lottery by debuting on the highlight reel with Chris Jericho. And honestly, I'm not going to get into anything that happened on Monday Night Raw in 2005 and then heading into 2006 with John Cena. It was a lot of feuds with Chris Jericho, Eric Bischoff, Tyson Tomko, Christian, you know, Trish Stratus, all that type of stuff. There was a lot of that going on with John Cena when he moved over to Raw. I mean, fighting Chris Jericho over and over again, fighting Christian Cage, you know, all that kind of stuff. And then obviously he would move into 2006, 2007, facing the likes of Triple H, Umaga, Randy Orton, etc., etc. But this was kind of just the best days of John Cena. And 2004 and 2005 were defining moments and defining years in his career, because it took an undercard prototype, a bodybuilding, basketball team short color wearing, biker short, you know, rookie, turned into a doctor of Thugonomics, turned into a United States champion, turned into a WWE champion, turned into a WrestleMania main eventer, and turned into a main eventer who would really redefine the history of the WWE and World Wrestling Entertainment for years to come. Yes, did John Cena start to cool off going into 2006, 2007, and so on? Absolutely. And that's why I decided to cover 04 and 05. Maybe I will do a video on 2002 and 2003, but to be honest, these were the years to discuss when trying to find the pivotal turning point into what made the prototype the John Cena we know today. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. I really did have a good time making this video. It was something I wanted to discuss for a long time, but I wanted to make sure that when I put it out, I did it justice and we covered whatever needed to be covered in breaking down the Doctor of Thugonomics. And yeah, that's going to be it for this video. And let me know who you'd like to have me cover next. But this was Basic Thugonomics, the rise of John Cena from 2004 to 2005. Thank you. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Drop a 5-knuckle shuffle, an FU, and an STF on the like button.